It's important to us to build independence into these organizations. How can I get a better job? How can I make more money in my small business? We don't do too many at once because we want to be very involved and not just providing introductions. We're looking for a founder market fit. Like, are they excited about this problem in some way or pissed off about it? We've generated over 2,000 ideas, and many of them we don't intend to go forward with. We like to incorporate early, I think it was over 100 tests that we summarized there. You're never going to have all the facts, but try to make a decision.
Hi, my name is Max. I'm an entrepreneur and I record podcasts with startup studio founders. Today my guest is Miles Lasater, a founder of Purpose Built Ventures. They started in the early 2022 and now built 3 companies. What's interesting, they've generated more than 2,000 ideas, and they, as every studio, they try to attract the best entrepreneurs possible, and they succeed with this. I hope you find this valuable, especially if you are a studio which just in the first 2 years of operations. So now the story of Miles. Yeah, so Miles, I'm very happy to meet you on my podcast about startup studios. And I'm very grateful to you for providing purpose-built financial model for founders. I used it in my research. So please tell about your studio and about how you came up with this idea to launch a studio, and where are you now in your progress?
Sure. Purpose-built partners with pre-incorporation founders as an institutional co-founder to create new companies from scratch on the theme of economic opportunity. And we're excited to build alongside founders, not just provide advice or introductions. So we're hands-on, acting as a co-founder for the first year or until there's an outside funding event. We've started 3 companies, and all 3 are post-revenue, and we're excited about that. We've got others in the pipeline. You ask, why did I do this? Like, what's exciting for me? I love the beginning. I love helping founders build. I help start a number of organizations. I was a founder myself 3 times of startups, but involved in nonprofits and other things. And I'm drawn to that beginning phase over and over again. I feel like that's where value's created. That's where dreams become reality. And so that's something I want to help others do. I've been an angel investor, I've been a venture capitalist, and those ways of doing it aren't as in touch with the source of creating new value in the world and creating new organizations. And so the studio is a blend of being an investor and a founder, but we are very much on the side of being a co-founder. And it's been exciting and thrilling. We've been working on this since last year. My co-founder as a serial founder himself, but also studied entrepreneurship from an academic perspective. And we've built a great team. Riney, as head of human capital with me, and others were able to come alongside an entrepreneur and fill out their team early on. So we have first-time founders, but we also have repeat founders because they see the value in going faster, having a team at the beginning, and making sure they're building on the right version, the strongest version of that idea in the beginning.
What do you think you do differently from other studios, or what is like your unique approach? Maybe you have some topic in mind to share and to talk about that, like you are not average studio, but you are something special.
Yeah, so we work with founders as an institutional co-founder, and we find normally those people are otherwise considering working with a person as a co-founder or going and starting the business themselves. So we're generally in that space and don't view ourselves as in competition with other studios in general. Occasionally that comes up. What makes us special is we offer a great deal for founders. We are mission driven on the theme of economic opportunity, and we focus heavily on demand. Do customers want this and are they willing to pay for it? And we've got an infrastructure that helps founders figure that out quickly. So we book meetings early on for founders with customers through our outbound marketing efforts, through our online marketing efforts, and through our customer advisory board panel. Plus, you get to work with us, right? So it's a personal decision of who you want to work with. I'm going to be involved, and the rest of the team is going to be directly involved in daily engagement, building the business. And so to some extent, just like you choose a person as a founder, you've got to choose the right fit from the studio perspective.
What is your focus? What is you say like economic opportunities? But can you describe your 3 startups? What do they do?
We work in the field of economic opportunity, as you mentioned, which for us means helping everyday Americans earn more money, grow their wealth. So it means like, how can I get a better job? How can I make more money in my small business? How can I save or invest better? So it's fintech, it's upskilling, meaning how do I increase my skills so I can earn more in the marketplace? It is how do I grow my small business? Could be marketing or other marketplace, something like that. It could be future of work. So those are the themes that we work on. You asked about like what are the companies that we're building. We've got a company called My Caring Plan that helps people find care for seniors, both in-home or senior living, so caregivers can get back to work. It helps. We've got Not Alien, which is a company that helps people choose where they want to move in the world and helps them do it by hiring a lawyer, etc. So it's a global immigration marketplace. And we've got a company called Coral Care that helps families find pediatric specialists like physical therapy, occupational therapy, and helps those practitioners grow their business without the headache of marketing, scheduling, insurance, paperwork of billing, etc. So those are the 3 businesses we have. All 3 are post-revenue. We're excited that there's really strong founder market fit in those businesses. And we have a nice pipeline. We're in what we call our exploration phase with another founder now, and in what we call idea match phase with a number of others. And really excited about the quality of founders that we get the opportunity to work with.
How do you attract founders? Like, what are your channels? And what are these profiles? So this you say that some of them are already second-time founders, some of them are first-time founders. So can you elaborate what is your model or approach how to attract founders and what you are looking for in them?
Yeah, we believe that the right fit founder for us is someone whose alternative is that they would go start a business anyway. So we're not looking for someone who sees this as a job. We're looking for founders that have high emotional intelligence, are traditionally intelligent, are relentlessly resourceful. We're looking for a founder market fit. Like, are they excited about this problem in some way or pissed off about it? Are they drawn to solve this particular problem? Is there a reason to believe they have either some special motivation or knowledge? Certainly is attractive to us. And we are looking for a past interest in startups. We're looking for a past achievement. And depending on how far they are in the career, the level of that achievement might be different in what we expect. We are open and have worked with first-time founders. We also work with founders who this is second or third time around, who want to go faster this time, and we're comfortable with both. We meet founders generally through our network. We also accept applications on our website. We publish certain things about our process and about us. You picked up on one of them, the financial model of how a founder can make more money by working with a studio. If it increases the chances of success even a few percentage points, it can pay for itself. And I think that's surprising to people, but the most likely outcome for startups is that they fail, right? And so if you can reduce that and improve your odds of success, creates a lot of value. And so we'll do events, we'll do that kind of content marketing that will cause us to meet people. But the most important is introductions. And we intentionally build a diverse network of people who can refer entrepreneurs to us so that we're casting a wider net. We're not being passive in that process, but we do think that meeting founders at the right time for them and meeting founders of profile that are going to be more likely to be successful is really important. And so that's why that kind of personal vouching for by someone who knows them really is helpful in understanding that founder and their capabilities and potential.
Do you usually attract only one co-founder to the startup, or you attract several co-founders?
I think this is something that, we're still feeling our way through. So far, I would say it's a solo main founder, although we've talked to some other duos. And then they may bring in, senior leadership that has a very sort of founding employee feel, but isn't there from day one as the co-founder. I think this is going to be different for each founder and something we're still learning as a studio. Curious for your experience.
I know that many studios they attract two co-founders, at least two, because like one is not so stable, and also like you need usually CEO and CTO. One is something like hacker CTO, and one is hustler, and so this duo of co-founders plus a studio as hipster is usually I saw it several times in great studios, like for example Hexa. They usually attract both entrepreneurs, and they usually divide equity equally, if I know it right, something like this. But what is in your case with equity split? Like usually entrepreneurs get majority equity, right?
Yeah, so the entrepreneur, the founder, is getting the vast majority of the company. And certainly, if they want to bring a co-founder and all, the studio and the two co-founders want to work together, we're certainly very open to that. So far, we've done solo founders, but again, we're still feeling our way through what makes the most sense. I have seen other studios with the model of, insisting on having two people, but I've also seen successful studios that don't have that as a requirement. So it's something that I'm curious to learn more about and see how it evolves.
How many entrepreneurs you interact with to decide to partner with someone? So I know that you pay stipend to them, right? Before you partner with them. Like, what is, if you also can elaborate on the funnel, or like what are you looking for in entrepreneurs, and also how many people do you take for your like some validation process together, and how many of them succeed and start companies with you. So if I'm right, you have now 3 entrepreneurs you attracted for those 3 companies, right?
Three that are working full time. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and we meet hundreds, right? To get to 3, we start exploring with maybe around 10, and that is an opportunity for us to assess whether both sides really want to work together, and if this is the right idea to work together on. And we really encourage founders to make sure it's the right time for them to start a business. We don't sell them on starting a business, right? We will, quote unquote, sell them or tell them why we believe we're a great partner for them and why we're excited to build this business together. But we're not going to be spending time convincing them to start a business. So sometimes people decide it's not the right time for them. Sometimes this isn't the right idea to work on, or they decide they want to work on an idea that's outside of the scope for us. So we sometimes find founders that we're excited about, but we don't come to an idea together.
Do you have such case when entrepreneurs invest their own money to start the business with you, or usually invest only your studio invests, and entrepreneurs they get stipend? What is the amount of the stipend, if you can share? And like, yeah.
So we're certainly open to founders investing cash into their business, depending on the level of success that they've had in the past and their need for ongoing cash themselves. Given that they're likely to be making a below market salary, compared to what they could be making if they weren't founding a new business for a while, it generally makes more sense, in my opinion, for a founder to keep those savings and use it for their own personal runway rather than putting it into the business. But again, it's going to depend on the particular situation of the business and the founder and what level of resources they have. So we put money into the business in the MVP pilot phase, and some of that money can be used to pay the founder, as you were saying, the stipend. That is determined based on the particular situation, the capital needs of the business, and the needs of that founder. It's generally meant to be enough so that they cannot worry about having to get outside jobs or consulting, and that they can full-time focus on the business. But it's also not meant to be what they could make on the open market if they went and got the highest paying job for their skills. It is not going to be a way to get rich. It's a way to stay afloat while we're exploring whether we have a real business here and building towards getting more resources into the business, either from customers or investors or whatnot, so that we can scale and they can earn more money over time.
What is your business model? What is your trajectory or perspective for the startup? So, for example, you invest up to 500K into the startup from 250 to 500K. After the startup get first sales, maybe, or what is the stage? And do your studio gets more equity out of this investment? Or do you plan those startups to get external funding in 1-2 years or something? So what is like your ideal plan for startups you create?
We do expect that most of the companies that we start out of the studio will require additional capital to get to the scale that we all dream of. And that will likely take the form of downstream angel or venture capital investment into these companies. It's not a requirement. It's not how we judge success, but we think that it is likely many will go that route. We invest, as you mentioned, up to 500K in tranches into the business, and we will buy equity for that money. We earn equity for co-founding the business and working alongside the founder in the beginning, and we will help with that fundraising process. Our business model generally is to work or purchase equity and then many, many years later sell it, hopefully at a great profit. It is a largely cash flow negative for years business model, as you know, which requires raising money upfront to fund that, and it certainly helps having a founding team that's been successful previously. And I've exited multiple businesses, so some of that money is self-funded from myself, and some of it's raised from outside investors.
If you can share at what stage of the startup you invest, and what is equity split? Like, I don't know, maybe you take something like 25% from scratch and then like invest in additional money and get some more. But yeah, if you can share this, it would be interesting
We're not able to share the deals that we've had with startups. I mean, I can't say that founders do receive the vast majority of the equity in the business that they start with us. The stage in which we get involved is pre-incorporation. So we're acting as the institutional co-founder, creating the business from scratch together. The founder brings the idea, or we bring the idea. Both have worked for us, or we can create something together. We've generated over 2,000 ideas, and many of them we don't intend to go forward with, but there are plenty that are available for a founder to review and see if it makes sense for them. Part of our idea match process is we'll recommend certain ones to a founder and say, we think these are a fit for your background and your interests as you've elaborated them. And then we'll help incorporate that business. We will, when appropriate, put in money to fund the pilot once we've identified, what is it that we want to build and deliver for customers and who are the initial customers. We put up the money for that initial MVP or pilot phase, which can include money for the founder to live on, as well as recruiting additional team members or building that initial version of the product or whatever needs to be done there. And so we're getting involved at the very earliest of stages, if that makes sense.
Do you invest before the company gets revenue? So do you actually invest, or like you just cover your costs and this is like the part of this investment, or you actually send money to the account of the startup, to the bank account?
So we will pay the founder at the beginning of that pilot phase if needed, and we will form the company. As soon as the company is formed, we do invest in the company. Each situation is going to be different, but in general, we do invest in the company. And it's not the full 500K. It's in tranches, as agreed upon with the founder, based on what's needed in that business and how we plan to grow it, what the expenses are and the milestones. We will buy equity in that startup.
What is the moment when you decide to incorporate a company? So you did some validation process, you understand that there is demand for this product, and you decide to incorporate, right? Or it's something different?
That's generally right. We like to incorporate early on in that MVP pilot phase. So we know that we've identified some customers that want the product and we're in the beginning stages of building it. The founder is committed and working full time, and we're starting to pull at least a part-time or contractor-based team together around them. Mm-hmm. And so it's incorporating fairly early. We don't have necessarily revenue yet. We're incorporating the business, and then we'll start charging customers from that business, ideally, assuming that we get it incorporated in time, where if customer demand is getting away from us, part of the advantage of having a studio is we can accept the customer payments into the studio before that new company stood up. Mm-hmm. These things can move quickly, and you want to be flexible depending on the particular situation. But in general, we do want to incorporate early in that phase so that the company can stand up on its own as early as possible.
I saw your one of the blog posts with name like you generated more than 1,000 ideas, but now you said it's already 2,000 ideas. So can you share the process, like from what it starts? How is it possible to do like 50 ideas per day? I saw at least maybe a couple of days you
we have publicly published at least 15 ways to have startup ideas, and I think our internal list is almost up to 40. Maybe we could publish more. Maybe that's the resource you were talking about. What is a resource that we could provide to your audience that might be useful, and maybe we can work up something together there. So we talked about it in that blog post that you mentioned in terms of how we got to 1,000. Some of it is about being diligent about capture. When you have an idea that strikes you wherever you are in your day, having an easy place to write it down and make sure you're capturing it. Part of it is about having structured time to brainstorm. Part of it is about noticing problems, and we'll have prompts like things to think about as you're going through your day or you're working on our studio companies. And sometimes we'll do very sort of structured things where we're doing like a grid that says, let's look at every company or like business model of this type across like 40 different industries and see, is there white space? So sometimes we'll look for things that way. And there'll be other kind of structured brainstorming things like that. But we believe in using a number of different techniques in order to generate ideas. And again, we're focused on quantity, not quality. So that's also part of the approach that we take, is we believe that by generating a lot of ideas, you will have more high quality ideas. You'll have a lot of things that you don't want to work on, which is fine. I think that's the way that creativity works, in my opinion, is by continuing to make connections and not limiting yourself, silencing the self-critic so that you can allow things to flow out and then assess them later. So we separate those two processes. We have, generation processes, and then we have rating or sorting or winnowing processes that are separate. And so we'll do a quick triage process where we kind of sort which ones are worth more time and which ones we don't want to spend time on. Very quickly sorting, we're not writing a lot on that. Then we'll go into a more rigorous scoring process with a rubric, etc., and sort of a one-page write-up. But we try not to go too far with an idea until we have an entrepreneur who's excited to build in that space. I think different than some studios that are more idea-focused, we really lean towards the founder side primarily to say, let's find a founder we want to build with, and then they can use one of our ideas we already have, or we'll develop an idea together, or they came in with an idea, and then we'll flesh out and really build out the idea and get rigorous about, is there a business here, rather than having a big storehouse of business plans that may not be relevant by the time you get around to working on it.
Mm-hmm. So usually first you validate those ideas, and then already this refined list you present to your founders, or you give them some part of your raw list of ideas.
Yeah. It's a mix. It's a mix. We do have what we call a demand test process. If you look at our blog, which it sounds like you have, you'll find we wrote about that process, and I think it was over 100 tests that we summarized there, where we, either with a founder involved in our exploration process, or even sometimes without a founder, we've done low resource outreach to quickly assess if there's interest in this particular area among customers, if it's a problem that they have. And so, we've done 100 plus demand tests this year without a founder attached to it, I think. And so we will sometimes be able to provide a founder with something that, look, we don't have a full business plan, but we do know that there are customers who are experiencing pain in this area. If you want to look into it more deeply with us, we'd be happy to schedule you calls with customers, and that's often a way that they can get rolling faster. Part of the advantage of working with a studio like us.
So you didn't validate all ideas, but maybe you, with fast scoring process, you just understand that, okay, 80% of ideas is not worth. Then you take, for example, 400, and then you choose 100 more and put it to test. So if you can tell about this funnel, if you have some numbers in your head, maybe it will be interesting to know what process must be done to get these 3 companies out of those 2,000 ideas.
Yeah, I don't have the full idea funnel numbers in my head, but we've done, I think, probably at least 200 demand tests. So we generated 2,000 ideas, roughly 200 demand tests, and entered exploration with, call it, a dozen to 20 ideas, roughly. And then I think some of those are still alive, so maybe we'll get 4 or 5 companies out of that process, something like that.
What is demand test like? What is usually?
That's our terminology for a quick check of customer pain.
Yeah, I mean, what is inside of this process? What do you do usually?
We're reaching out to a handful of customers and trying to identify pain, and usually among 3. If it's more consumer business, you might be okay with just 1, depending on how big of a problem it is for business and how hard they are to reach. It's meant to be something that you can do in a couple weeks. That doesn't take a lot of resources. And you may, again, depending on the type of customer, be engaging with them as an online survey. You may be engaging with them over email. But preferred is to get on a live synchronous conversation with them and ask them open-ended questions. We do believe, I think different than some people, we believe that the customer discovery process should not be generally open-ended the whole time. You don't want to have 100 customer conversations with no idea of what the solution is just to come up with a design. We think that it's best to be turning towards selling something. Even very earliest conversations, you have a hypothesis of what you want to sell. You don't want to influence the conversation in the beginning with it. So start with open-ended questions. But we do believe towards the end in trying to sell something. And that doesn't necessarily mean for cash. It can be for the customer's time. It can be for their reputation or introductions or something. But it's testing whether this is really an important problem for them and whether there's willingness to pay and stay engaged, right? Because people do have a tendency to want to be nice, right? So they're going to tell you, oh, this is great. Yeah, you're spending your time well, you're looking into something. They may not want to tell you that this isn't a big problem for me, or like, I'm not going to buy the product that you end up with. So you want to be really careful about that. And so one of the things that we do is ask for something by the end of the call.
What do you think is the biggest problem with managing a startup studio? What challenges do you have? What is difficult that is not seen from outside?
Yeah, I think from the big picture, the most important strategic thing to figure out is how to attract, identify, and partner with the highest quality entrepreneurs that you can. That is a challenge, I think, sort of never goes away and is the core of how you build a successful studio. In terms of something that people may not know, like what has been a learning for me in what's challenging about running a studio is I was a little surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but we underestimated the time it takes and the work that it takes to match a founder with an idea. Not a surprise once you say it, but we didn't budget enough time for that process in our original thinking. Because we do really want to make sure that the founder fits, as we discussed, and takes psychological ownership over the business and this idea and problem, not just the equity ownership that they have in it. And that process is one that can engage their emotions, engages their particular preferences, and not something you can actually rush or budget, right? They've got to click with it. And sometimes that happens fast and sometimes it takes a little time. And we just didn't budget enough in our original planning around that.
Do you think that during those almost 2 years, maybe 1.5 years of operations, you had some mistakes or something you learned and changed the way you do inside of a startup studio?
We have learned around speed to decision. Like, do we want to start this business with this founder? We're getting better and better at speeding up that process. And we think that that's a service to the founders and a service to ourselves to not spend a lot of time in that in-between phase, if possible, right? So I just mentioned the idea match phase can take longer, fine, but let's not drag out trying to decide if now's the right time for this founder to start something, or if we want to work together. Let's try to make a decision. You're never going to have all the facts, but try to make a decision with some level of speed.
What do you think that, like, during those 1.5 years that you succeeded in something and it can be valuable to share with other startup studio founders? I mean that some specific process you get done it very well, and you think that maybe you are proud of this of this specific process or some part of managing of a studio. Do you have something in mind?
I think we've talked about things that I'm proud of in terms of how we position with founders, how we generate ideas, and how we validate them and get quickly to a place where a founder is working full time. We still have a lot to learn in this process, and I'm excited to share what we have so far on this podcast. But not sure I'm yet comfortable in a place where I can brag a lot about all of the wonderful things that other venture studio founders should emulate.
Another question is about fundraising. Am I right that it was mainly from your already existing network? I mean, fundraising for the studio. Did you have some difficulties with explaining what the studio model is, or maybe some advice for studios that are thinking about fundraising?
Yeah, fundraising for our venture studio has primarily come from people who already know us. And I think that's fairly normal for venture studios, even startups in the very beginning. Often you start with people who already know you when you're fundraising. In terms of advice, I think being able to articulate why this team is going to be successful and the experience that you have in building startups. For us, we also were able to articulate how we'd really done our homework in looking at other models, being inside other studios, seeing how things were done. And we're able to point to great people that we're bringing on board so that the team was commencing. I think that's certainly helpful. Timing makes a big difference, right? Sort of external market conditions and timing of that investor's appetite and cash flows and when they are able to make investments certainly matters. We're lucky in some extent because some of this is self-funded from me, right? So it certainly is more helpful if you're starting a studio if you've had exits before, right? And I know that sounds maybe frustrating to hear or maybe blindingly obvious to say, but I remember when I worked for Walker Digital back 20 plus years ago, which didn't call itself a venture studio, but had many of those elements. Spun out Priceline was the most well known, and some other businesses based on people inventing new business models. And I remember when I was working there, I thought, oh, it would be amazing to run an organization like this one day. But first, I got to go start a successful business so anyone will trust me to run a studio. And so that's what I went and did, right? But it takes a long time to come back around, for sure. So I don't know how realistic that path is for everyone. But certainly having had prior success as a founder, including exits, not only adds for the credibility, but helps with the funding.
Can you also elaborate on what is your team inside the studio, which works with startups? How many people, what they do? What is the level of engagement? So I saw on your website something like from 3 to 9 months, maybe more. So can you share?
Sure. We got myself, my co-founder Taylor, who's a multi-time founder himself and has been head of growth. He runs our innovation. He's head of innovation, so that's like idea to company. And Riney is our head of human capital. She's been head of people at a number of successful startups. Tala, Simple, she's been an executive recruiter. She's been a coach. And we also have Principal, whose background, subject matter expertise is in marketing. We have a venture analyst who is doing desk research and customer discovery process. So that's the core 5 people. We also have contractors who help with list building, with administrative and finance and operations help. We really see it as daily engagement with the founder, with a member of our team, and depending on what they're doing that day, it will be a different member of our team, perhaps, if the most important thing going on is about building out the team and recruiting for that company. They're likely to be talking to Riney, right? If they're mainly working on fundraising, there'll be texts and calls with me often, or sometimes they'll want advice on other strategic issues that I'll get involved with them. So it's really going to depend on what is the issue or the goal for that particular day, who they're going to be engaging with. And then we'll often do like a weekly touch base with the founder and our internal team to get everyone synced up. Some cases, as we're really getting into it, we'll do weekly calls on different topics, right? Depending on if there's key projects and we're building a larger team at that startup, different people will be engaged. So we try again to customize it based on what are the needs of this business, what are the needs of this founder, and we don't do too many at once because we want to be very involved and not just providing introductions or advice, but hands-on doing work, taking on OKRs ourselves. Like this is something that purpose-built team member is going to deliver this week or this month.
And in terms of duration of this involvement, so do you plan that company will spin out of your studio and become independent of the studio?
Yeah, I would say it's important to us to build independence into these organizations and help founders stay and grow independently of the studio. We don't want to create a situation where it's too involved. That said, we work hard for about a year or until this outside funding event where we can put together a team that can do most of the things that we would be doing otherwise. And then we transition from being a co-founder type role to more active investor role where we may have a board seat. We are at that point still very available for conversations, introductions, strategic insight, helping manage board dynamics, etc., things like that. But that's more of a role that you'd expect from an investor. And we turn our attention to the next startup that we're working with in terms of that intensive engagement.
If we talk about focusing on companies that create economic values or benefits for people, maybe if I understood it right, it's usually B2C, maybe. I want to understand, do you think that doing every next startup is easier for you because you have already some, the same customers who can test your product? Or what is the effect? So what is the reason why every next startup will be faster, more profitable, faster to revenue, and so on? So what is the effect? Because in my opinion, if you are very niche focused, so you are able to use again the same customer base, the same marketing channels, and understanding of your audience. But for me, it's things. I think that it's quite broad definition that economic benefits, or how do you call it? Yeah. So what do you think about this?
No, I think it's a good point, and it's something that we differ from some studios on, is that we have what is a fairly broad theme of economic opportunity. Again, we're optimizing for attracting the very best founders, and we don't want to constrain that search to too narrow a slice of the industry landscape. Some, like you said, do argue that by extreme focus on a particular audience or customer base, you can speed up your cycles. And I think there is an advantage. There's probably a strategy that works there. That's not the strategy that we're pursuing. We do learn and get faster and better through doing the same types of activities over and over and capture them in our playbooks and reuse learnings from one place to another about tactics. We are building customer advisory board and a number of verticals that are important to us, but it's not as if it's always going back to the same customers, exact same channels, which would have some advantage. But we believe that overall, the thing you want to optimize for in a studio is attracting and working with the very best founders.
Thank you, Miles.
I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share about our studio and excited to collaborate with founders if they want to reach out, or if there are other venture studio folks that want to compare notes about how to build a successful venture studio, we are generally in a learning mode and happy to talk with people.
Thank you, Miles.